I never should have taken that shortcut. It was late, past midnight, and I was driving home after a long shift at the bar. I had done this drive 100 times before, taking the back roads through the farmland outside Fresno to avoid traffic. But that night, I was exhausted. So when I saw a small, unmarked road on my GPS that claimed it would cut 20 minutes off my drive, I took it. The road was narrow, cracked asphalt swallowed by weeds. The kind of road that should have been abandoned. But the moment I turned onto it, I felt wrong. Like I had just made a huge mistake. At first, it was just quiet. Too quiet. Even for a road this empty, something felt off. There were no streetlights. No signs. No other cars. Just my headlights cutting through the darkness, illuminating endless fields on either side of me. I checked my GPS again. The map was still showing this as a legitimate route, but my phone had no service. I exhaled, trying to shake off the feeling. Just keep driving. The road would eventually meet back up with the highway. Then, I saw the barn. It sat just off the road, half hidden by overgrown grass. An old wooden structure, long abandoned, its roof caved in on one side. But as I passed it, my headlights hit something inside. A car. Not just any car. A black sedan with its driver's side door open. Sitting there, engine off, lights off, like someone had just abandoned it. My stomach twisted. Who would leave their car in a barn in the middle of nowhere? I slowed down slightly, peering into the darkness. And then I saw him. A man standing just beyond the doorway, watching me. I hit the gas. Heart pounding, I sped down the road, trying to shake the feeling of those eyes on me. The barn disappeared into the distance. I forced myself to breathe. Maybe it was just some guy who broke down and went looking for help. Yeah, that's all it was. Then my headlights flickered. For just a second. And when they came back on, the man was standing on the side of the road, directly ahead of me. I screamed, slammed on the brakes. But by the time I skidded to a stop, tires screeching against the pavement, he was gone. Vanished. Like he had never been there at all. My chest heaved, my pulse a wild drumbeat in my ears. I checked my mirrors. The road was empty. Nothing behind me. Nothing ahead. Just endless darkness. Tried to rationalize it. A trick of the light. A shadow from the trees. But I knew what I saw. And I wasn't alone out here. I gripped the wheel, forcing myself to keep going. I just had to get back to a main road. Back to civilization. Back to people. The cracked asphalt stretched on endlessly, the fields on either side swaying in the wind. Then, my headlights hit something up ahead. Another barn. My blood ran cold. It was the same barn. Same collapsed roof. Same black sedan parked inside. Same open driver's side door. I had been driving straight for 20 minutes. So why was I back where I started? I slammed my hands on the dashboard. No. 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 I grabbed my phone, praying for service. Nothing. The screen glitched, the GPS still insisting I was on the right road. I looked up, and my breath caught in my throat. The man was standing in the barn doorway again. Only this time, he was closer. I hit the gas, peeling out as fast as my old car could manage. The tires kicked up dust, the road blurring past me. I watched the odometer tick up, speeding toward 90, 100 miles per hour. And yet, the barn kept appearing, over and over, no matter how far I drove. I always ended up back at that barn. I was trapped. My hands were shaking as I gripped the wheel. I had to do something different. Had to break the loop. I slowed the car to a crawl, staring at the barn as I approached it for the 5th time. The man was still there. Still standing in the shadows. Still watching. But this time, he took a step forward. I barely had time to react before the passenger door unlocked. Click. Then, it swung open. I lunged for the door, trying to slam it shut, but something cold and unseen wrapped around my wrist. A grip that wasn't human. My breath hitched. And then I saw it. A hand. Pale, unnaturally long fingers curling over the edge of the seat, pulling itself inside. I yanked my arm away, stomping on the gas, the door slamming shut as I shot forward. And as I sped away, I heard it. A whisper. Right next to me. You were supposed to stop. I didn't remember the rest of the drive. I don't know how I made it home. One moment, I was on that endless road, lost in a nightmare that refused to end. The next, I was parked outside my house, the engine still running. I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty seat beside me, afraid to look in the mirrors, afraid to look too long into the dark. Then, my phone buzzed. One new notification. I hesitated before picking it up. It was a photo. No sender. No caption. Just a single image. Of me. Sitting in my car. Taken from the passenger seat. I never should have answered that call. It was Christmas Eve, late at night, and I was driving through the back roads of Northern California with my girlfriend, Ashley. This was our tradition. We'd spend Christmas Eve with my family in Redding, then drive through the night to her parents' house near Eureka. It was only a 3-hour drive, but most of it was through quiet, empty roads, just towering redwoods, fog rolling through the hills, and the occasional farmhouse glowing with Christmas lights in the distance. I used to love those drives. Until that night. The snow had started falling lightly, dusting the roads in a soft, white glow. It was peaceful, just the two of us, listening to old holiday songs, laughing, wrapped up in the magic of Christmas. Then my phone rang. An unknown number. I ignored it. Probably a scam call. A few minutes passed. Then it rang again. Same number. Ashley shot me a look. Who keeps calling you this late? No clue, I muttered, turning the music up slightly. Then it rang a third time. I sighed, grabbing the phone off the dashboard and swiping to answer. Hello. Silence. At first, I thought the call had dropped. Then, beneath the static, I heard it. Breathing. Slow. Deep. I frowned. Who is this? Nothing. Then, a man's voice. Low. Flat. Like he was speaking from somewhere far away. Hello, James. I nearly swerved off the road. My grip tightened on the wheel. Who the hell is this? He ignored the question. Instead, he started reciting my personal information. My full name. My birthday. My address. Details about my life that no stranger should know. A deep, cold unease settled in my stomach. Who are you? I asked again, my voice unsteady. A long pause. Then, I'm not here for you. The line crackled. I'm here for Ashley. My head snapped toward her. She was staring at me, eyes wide, her breath hitching in her throat. I gritted my teeth and lied. I don't know any Ashley. The man chuckled softly. She's sitting right next to you. I yanked the wheel, pulling onto the shoulder so fast the tires skidded against the snow. Ashley reached over and, in one fluid motion, hung up the phone. I turned to her, furious. Why the hell did you do that? Her face was pale. I don't know. I just panicked. I immediately tried calling the number back. Nothing. Tried again. Disconnected. The car was filled with a heavy, suffocating silence. The kind that settles in your chest and doesn't leave. I could hear Ashley's breathing shallow, quick. Ashley, I said slowly. Who was that? She shook her head. I don't know, but something in her voice. She wasn't telling me everything. I put the car in drive and floored it. We didn't talk the rest of the way. Every time my phone lit up, I flinched, expecting it to be that number again. But it never was. When we finally pulled into her driveway, the house was dark. Her parents were asleep. I put the car in park, my hands still shaking. Then, click. Ashley reached over and locked the doors. I turned to her, confused. What are you doing? She wouldn't look at me. Her hands were trembling. Ashley, I said again, softer this time. What is it? She swallowed hard. I think I know who it was. My stomach twisted. Tell me. She took a shaky breath. A few years ago, back when I lived in San Francisco. I had a stalker. My blood ran cold. He never hurt me, she continued. But he'd send me messages. Leave notes on my car. Sometimes, I'd see him standing outside my apartment, just watching. I clenched my jaw. Did you ever go to the police? Yeah. They couldn't do anything. He never threatened me. Never touched me. She shivered. Then, one day, he just stopped. The air in the car felt wrong. I exhaled slowly. Ashley, do you think that was him? Her hands tightened into fists. I don't know. Then, barely above a whisper. But how else would he know where we were? A sick realization settled over me. He had to be following us. I turned in my seat, scanning the dark, snow-covered street. The houses were quiet. Still, there was no one there. At least, no one that I could see. We should tell your parents, I said. She shook her head. Not tonight. They won't believe me. They never did before. I swallowed down my frustration. Okay, but tomorrow, we go to the police. She nodded. We stepped out of the car and hurried inside. The house was warm, filled with the scent of pine and cinnamon. It should have felt safe. It didn't. Ashley went upstairs, but I lingered by the window, staring out into the snow-covered street. I don't know how long I stood there. but just as I turned to go upstairs, my phone buzzed. No caller ID. My breath caught in my throat. Slowly, I lifted the phone to my ear. I didn't say anything. Neither did he. Just breathing. Deep. Slow. Then, a whisper. Low. Cold. "I'll see you soon, James." The line went dead. I never thought I'd be afraid of my own house. When my fiancée, Emily, and I bought it, we thought it was perfect. A 2-story fixer-upper just outside of Sacramento, plenty of space, an old oak tree in the front yard, and a big backyard for the dog we planned to adopt. The neighbors were friendly. The street was quiet. It should have been everything we wanted. But from the very first night, something was wrong. It started with the scratching sounds. At first, I thought it was rats in the walls, tiny claws scurrying just beyond the drywall. But the more I listened, the more I realized it wasn't coming from inside the walls. It was coming from inside the closet. Emily laughed it off. "It's an old house," she said, nudging me playfully. "Old houses make weird noises." I tried to believe her. But the next night, I woke up to the sound of the closet door creaking open. The door had been closed when we went to bed. I was sure of it. And yet, when I turned over in the darkness, it was cracked open. Just an inch. A sliver of pitch-black space, gaping into the unknown. My breath caught in my throat. Emily was still asleep beside me, breathing softly. I sat up, staring at the open door. Listening. I couldn't hear anything, but I could feel it. Something was watching me. I forced myself to get up, heart pounding, and cross the room. With a deep breath, I grabbed the closet handle and yanked it open. Nothing. Just empty shelves, a few jackets hanging on the rack, and a box of old books. I let out a shaky laugh. I was being paranoid, just half asleep and imagining things. I closed the door, locked it, then crawled back into bed, wrapping my arms around Emily. I tried to sleep, tried to forget the feeling that something had been standing there, just out of sight. Then, just as I was drifting off, the closet creaked open again. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, Emily noticed how tired I looked. "Are you okay?" she asked, setting a cup of coffee in front of me. I hesitated. Then, finally, I told her. Told her about the scratching sounds, about the closet opening by itself. I expected her to laugh it off again. But instead, she went quiet. Then she sighed. "I didn't want to say anything," she admitted, running a hand through her hair. "But I've been hearing it too." That night, I did something stupid. I set up my phone camera to record the closet. Emily thought it was a bad idea. "If something does happen," she said, biting her lip, "do you really want to see it?" But I needed to know. Needed proof. So I set up the phone on the dresser, aimed directly at the closet. Then we went to bed. When I woke up the next morning, the phone was on the floor, and the closet door was wide open. I hesitated before watching the footage. Something about the way the phone had fallen, like it had been knocked over on purpose. Emily stood behind me as I pressed play. For the first few hours, nothing happened. Just darkness. Then, at 3:14 a.m., the closet door creaked open. Slowly, like something was pushing it from the inside. A long pause. Then, a shadow moved. Just barely. A dark shape shifting in the closet, too deep in the shadows to make out. Then, right before the footage cut, the phone toppled over, like something had pushed it. Emily gasped. "What the hell was that?" I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. "I don't know." We played it back, over and over. Each time, I felt sicker. Because the more I watched it, the more I realized the shadow wasn't just moving. It was crawling. We called someone to check the house. A contractor, an exterminator, even a priest. None of them found anything. No pests. No faulty wiring. No explanation for the noises, the movement, or the closet opening on its own. One of the guys even joked, "Maybe your house is haunted." He laughed. I didn't. Because deep down, I already knew. We tried to ignore it, to live normally. But the more we ignored it, the worse it got. Doors slamming shut. Footsteps in the hall when we were both in bed. The closet door swinging open wider every night. One evening, while Emily was in the shower, I stood in front of the closet and finally asked, "What do you want?" A long silence. Then, a faint whisper. So quiet, I almost thought I imagined it. "Let me out." I stopped sleeping in that room. Emily didn't understand at first, but I refused to go back in there. Something wasn't right. Something was in there. And I had a feeling. Whatever it was getting stronger. One night, I woke up to the sound of Emily screaming. I ran into our bedroom, heart pounding, and found her sitting up in bed, eyes wide with terror. She was staring at the closet. The door was open, but this time, something was standing inside. Not a shadow, not a trick of the light. A figure, tall, thin, its face stretched into something that wasn't human. Emily bolted from the room before I could react. I grabbed the door handle and slammed it shut. I locked it, nailed it shut. We never opened it again. We moved out a month later. Didn't tell the realtor, didn't tell the next owners. We just left. But sometimes, late at night, I wake up to the sound of scratching, and I wonder, did we trap it inside? Or did we bring it with us? Please like and subscribe. Every bit of support means the world.